Hey everyone, today I'm going to talk about why the Imperium of Man, aka Space Marines, can't really be considered the good guys. Alright, so when I was putting together this video, I was thinking about the Space Marine lore, and something I hadn't noticed that kind of just blew my mind, that I see a lot of, kind of around like 40k communities and things, is this like iconic idea that like the paragon of humanity is like the Imperium of Man, aka Space Marines, and that is just not right, like whatsoever. If anyone lived in this society, you would be absolutely miserable. It's cool, don't get me wrong, Space Marines, the Imperium of Man, it's a neat idea. I mean, hey man, 41st century, fucking all-out war, it's kooky, man. And so obviously you need like a huge set of army backbone infrastructure to run that, and all that entails, but I don't know if we can necessarily say they're good guys, and let me lay these reasons out for you. Okay, so let me address the first reason. Let's start with a brief history. If you know anything about the Space Marine history, you know there was this giant war known as the Horus Heresy, and a lot of people died, and the Space Marine chapters kind of diverged between Chaos Space Marines and the, good Space Marines that you probably already are aware of. There was one particular guy that I found fairly interesting. His name was Angron, or Angorn. I'm gonna call him Angron. I believe that's the correct terminology. He was a guy, and let me set this backstory. He was this guy who lived on this planet, as all the Primarchs did, who was a favored son of the Emperor. There's only like 20, 21, I can't remember the exact number. And they were all scattered. So he lived on this planet, and people who found him when he was, a very small child, and they decided to put him in brutal, like, death pits. Yeah, I think that's how you could describe them. There's pretty much gladiatorial battle all the time on this planet, and there was this hierarchy of the upper echelon and elite class that kind of subjugated the lower classes. And for their entertainment, they put you in brutal death pits for gladiatorial combat, and this was kind of like all the time. So they found this Primarch guy, and of course as a child they don't know much about him, and he's close to death, and after they put him in these death pits, if you know anything about the Primarchs, they're huge, like ridiculously strong, intelligent people. They're incredible fighters, they have crazy physique, they're like, 8-9 feet tall, what have you, they're just crazy. And of course as he, goes throughout his life, he becomes older, bigger, stronger, badder, just winning all these fights, killing everybody. Also, can't forget, they put a cortical device in his brain that, like, unleashes his rage. It, like, shoots adrenaline into this already, like, bestial monstrosity to make him, like, this, like, crazy killer. He goes throughout his life and he keeps killing, and eventually he comes to a point where he's like, hey, man, killing people for these elite upper crust echelon of, nobility, I don't want to do this anymore. This kind of sucks. Yeah, he decides to revolt. That's probably the best way to put it. He decides he doesn't want to do this anymore, and he and 2,000 of his gladiator bros, they just decide to, like, run away, kill a bunch of people, and try to escape. Well, they kind of make their way out to countryside/mountains. They get out of there, they run out of the city. Over the course of a few years, they're kind of like trying to lay low, but people are finding them and they're killing them. The government's looking for these guys. Well, eventually, along the way, the government starts to figure out where they are, and they're going to take them out. Well, in the meantime, Angron's father, the God Emperor, happens to stumble upon this planet where he is. And he watches them and kind of sees his development. And then what happens is right near the end of what would be his last stand, Angron, that is, he sees that he's got his 2,000 bros, and they're on this planet. And the Emperor decides to teleport him out of this, like, last battle that will ensure certain death for Angron and all his people. He's just going to get overrun. There's, like, no way he can live through it. When that happens, the Emperor's like, hey, by the way, all that stuff you were doing on this planet, your whole upbringing, everything you knew in life is kind of just crap. You're my favorite son. You're this, chosen one to lead the armies of man and humanity. But you're going to come work for me now. And Angron, of course, is like, well, dude, what the hell? Like, this is my whole life. You just plucked me out of my incomplete existence and tell me all this stuff. I mean, who the hell are you? I already don't trust people who are more noble, wealthy, like upper class and all this. Also, like 2,000 of my bros are down there. Can like I go, save them. I'd kind of like to be with them, even die with them, because that's kind of my whole existence. And Emperor's like, no, I'm not. No, we have like whatever. Just you can't. We just can't let you do that. It's like well, you teleported me up here. Could you like get my 2,000 bros like that? That'd be no Emperor's no, can't. Sorry, man. One teleporter, bud. I don't know. So yeah, that's gonna be pretty crappy. So yeah, watched all those people get massacred. And you think, oh, these are peons. The Emperor had his reasons, what have you, but not necessarily, I would say, a good thing. The Emperor of Man being what it is, and humanity with Space Marines and whatnot that were at his side, he could have probably easily gone down there and saved whoever, but he decided not to. What kind of is more telling is that Angron is a little crazy. In fact, when the Emperor tells him, you've got to lead my army because you're this chosen son, they figure out one thing that's pretty important, and that's that they can't remove the crazy making cortical device in his brain that makes him super rageful all the time. They can't get rid of it. They willingly and knowing and willfully let this crazy person lead an army. Like, he's got rage issues, he doesn't like the Emperor, and you're gonna let him lead an army. Later, this comes back to bite him in the butt, but initially, I don't think that's a great idea for humanity to let murderous, brutal killers run around and kind of lead an army. You wouldn't give psychopaths an army generally. That's not really a good idea, kind of frowned upon. Later on, Angron decides to lead this army eventually, and he kind of has his own way of doing things, and he also decides that he's going to put these cortical crazy brain things in all his little Space Marine guys to make them angry all the time. And at first the Emperor doesn't think it's a good idea, and later it becomes a problem, but he basically makes a whole army of murderers. And that's kind of what happens. Now, granted, they do fall into chaos, but, the Emperor is an all-wise, all-seeing, godlike character who thought this was a good idea. And that's a little problematic, kind of a big mistake. In fact, Angron is known for going to planets and just massacring everybody, regardless of whether they're good or bad or even pose a threat. He's just like, oh, here's a planet we need to retake with humans. And of course, you land on any planet, there's going to be people that don't want you to be there, and they want to kill you. And so they would normally dismantle the government and the military, what have you. But instead, they kill those people and also civilians, and also just can't stop killing. That's a problem. So I thought it was interesting. I mean, the Emperor took a crazy person, made him pretty much more crazy by destroying his whole world that he knew, and then gave him an army. Yeah. Not a genius idea, Emperor. Pretty bad one. Okay, guys, moving forward. After the Horus Heresy, after the Emperor becomes mortally wounded, put on the throne, a religion springs out of that, and people start calling him the God Emperor, and pretty much turns the government from what it was into a government run by religious zealots. Being that this is a problem, of course, because religious zealots are running the government and pretty much humanity as we know it. Anybody with a dissenting principle or value or religion, what have you, if they're encountered, they pretty much will kill you. That's pretty standard for the Imperium of Man. You're just a heretic, man. You don't believe our religion must be chaos, bro. Boom, you're dead. You really don't have a choice there. It's pretty awful. Also, another thing that humanity likes to do is pretty much control your life at all times. Now, if you're part of the Imperium and you live on a planet, that planet's going to be used for the Imperium to fund their war and what have you. And you might be on a forge world, like making technology and weapons and life systems and armor or whatever. You could be making anything, and you're going to work day in, day out, nonstop until you die. Let's say you're on a different planet. Say you're on this planet that just grows a lot of food and has natural resources. That planet is going to be mined and harvested until there's nothing left. And if you're a human on that planet, you're going to be worked to the bone until you die. That's kind of pretty much how it exists in the Imperium of Man. Like, if you're a commoner, you work till you die. Things get better for the life of the gentry or the more noble classes that exist, but ultimately even they have to follow all the rules, and it's pretty crappy for them too. It's not a very luxurious lifestyle by any means. Also, if the Imperium of Man, encounters a new planet, they force this on you. There's no choice. When they land, they say, like, join or die. You either join the book club of the Emperor, and if you're not part of the book club, man, you're gone. They're just gonna kill you. Like, you love us or they kill you. That's life, pretty much. Another thing they like to do if you don't follow them is do what's called an exterminatus, and I think this is particularly funny because it's really the epitome of what's terrible about the Imperium. If you think differently, and let's say you're on a planet and they're just going to kill people until people give in, but every once in a while they find a planet of people who are just not willing to give in, they're just going to resist, they'll do what's called an exterminatus, which is they just deem your planet unfit, unworthy, and they kill everybody via bombing, via destroying the planet entirely, making it a barren wasteland, or sometimes they'll do a virus bomb. They put a life eater virus that deconstructs all organic matter, and then the gases that are released become flammable, and they light it on fire. So first they destroy everything and let it decompose, and then light it on fire and burn anything that's left that's living. Yeah, it's pretty terrible. And Isfan 3 is a good example. From the Horus Heresy, there was a planet full of people, and there was a little bit of some chaos stuff going on, and it wasn't really good. There were 16 billion people on that planet, and they killed all of them via an exterminatus, a mass extinction, if you will. Yeah, not really a place I'd want to be a part of. The Imperium Man, kind of evil in a lot of ways, not really good. All right, so that's pretty much it. Imperium of Man, not a good place to live. Not really the good guys necessarily either. There's really no freedom of thought, period. And, living a life where any cultural exchange is met with murder kind of sucks. Have any thoughts? Whatever. Let me know in the comments.